Bernadette Russell is an author, performer, and thaumaturge, which is a word I learned this week, which is a worker of wonders, which I love. So, who lives in Southeast London, where she writes and creates performances for both adults and children. She's made shows for the Royal Albert Hall, the National Theatre, the Southbank Centre, and Birmingham Rep, among many, many others. She's an award-winning kindness campaigner and a columnist for Balance magazine. And in 2015, she was chosen as one of the Southbank Centre's Changemakers for her project 366 Days of Kindness, which you're on tour with, which is great. And The Little Book of Wonder, Rediscover the Power of Creativity, Curiosity, and Imagination was published in 2018. So, Bernadette, thank you so much for coming. I've got to ask you, why do you think wonder is actually important?
It's an excellent question to start with. And also thank you for that amazing introduction. I might have you just follow me around.
So happily be your roadie. Happily.
Oh no, I would be yours. Wonder. I think wonder can bring us back to happiness from when we feel sad. It can allow us to enter into a sort of flow state, and by that I mean we can forget our troubles just by allowing ourselves to experience awe and wonder. It's a place where we can play, or we can stretch our imaginations, and we can sort of revisit the things that we had access to, if we were lucky, in our childhoods, which somehow or other we're denied us as adults often, like play, like curiosity, like asking questions, like jumping in puddles, all that stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And I wanted to ask, so why do you think we just tend to just forget about wonder as adults?
Yes, I suppose some people don't. I think artists still occupy a space of wonder. I think scientists do, and engineers, and lots of different groups of people do. I think a lot of people still hold on to it through their hobbies as much as they're able to. But I think as a sort of moment by moment daily practice, we get weighed down by having to pay our rent or do the washing up or buy our shoelaces. And children, if we're lucky, if we're lucky as children, we don't have to think about washing up, going to work, or paying the rent. So our lives are about the immediate experience, the immediate incredible experience of being alive. And everything's new and fresh. But it's really wonderful, I think, to remind yourself that you had that as a child, that when you saw a rainbow, you pointed at it and showed everybody else, that you laid on your back in the grass and see if you could see shapes in the clouds, that you danced in the rain. And it's good to give yourself permission to just do those things again if you fancy them.
Oh, that's so nice. Sorry, it was so nostalgic just saying some of those things. I was like, oh, that's so sad. It's just so true. And I like...
It is within our power to do them though, isn't it? Do you think so?
I think you're right. It's more our concern of judgment, I think. That's what maybe I think.
Yeah. I guess,
because
a very useful thing, I think, perhaps you saying that, I was thinking, maybe what we need to do is find playmates again, to find wonder mates, to find someone just to say, do you fancy going for a walk at twilight in the woods and see if we can hear an owl? Just someone who wants to go on an adventure with you.
That's so true. Yeah, and I like how you've split the book up into all these sort of categories where, places to find it. Now, what do you think is the most important aspect in finding wonder, do you think, around us?
Well, actually, I think the most important thing is self-knowledge, actually. So I think that's very individual. I think it's worth working out what inspires wonder in you and what means wonder to you. So for me, that's very much connected with the natural world. But for someone else, that might be looking at structural engineering or chemistry. So I think it's about self-knowledge, first of all, saying what fills me with wonder. Is that astrophysics? Is it lace making? Could be either of those things. Are amazing, aren't they? Notice the effect that has on you. Hopefully would be positive, I'm sure it would be. And then give yourself time, make a bit of time and space for your astrophysics or your lace making or your whatever it is, So I think it is individual. I would say it's always beneficial because it's a way of expressing self-care and self-love. And then, yeah, making time for it if you can, even a little bit of time.
Yeah, you're so right, because I just wanted to ask you, because obviously we were talking about your touring at the moment, and I was just wondering, have you managed to find a bit of time to experience wonder during your touring at all?
Yeah, so I think it's really good. I struggle. I've previously struggled with this until I realised that actually, when I'm pulling my case along, about to get on the bus, to get on the train, in the rain, even that journey, if I switch my mindset and I think, okay, I'm going to be completely present in this journey. My case is heavy and it's raining, but it's raining and that's amazing. And I'm going to notice how the rain falls, how it drips down the window of the train, who else is on the train, what they're doing, be a bit curious, be a bit nosy about that, what it looks like out of the window, how I'm feeling in my body. So there's something about being sort of mindfully, intentionally present that brings you to a state of wonder as well. So you can do it all the time. It's lovely to be able to have the luxury to set aside time, but you and I both live very busy lives, as we've discussed before. So the thing is to make it part of every day. So yeah, for example, I've been journeying a lot, so I've just thought I'm going to really notice this journey, and think about the train and how amazing that is. And I started researching when I was on one train journey. I started researching the railway lines when they were laid out. I thought, I've never really considered that. I take this amazing thing for granted. So my granddad worked on the railways as well, so there's a family connection there. Yeah, so I thought, I'll look into that, and started researching Isambard Kingdom Brunel, this the amazing Victorian engineer who built lots of tunnels and amazing structures. So I think it's just, with the time you've got in the moment that you're in, just seeing what you can see. A really useful exercise, and I talk about this across all of my work really, is to just, if you're somewhere in the moment that you're in, is just to look for one thing that you find really, really beautiful, incredibly beautiful. And that again will be really personal, because what's beautiful to me might not be beautiful to you. Although I suspect you and I probably find the same things beautiful. Yeah, so I think you can find it all the time. I mean, children do. What's astonishing, isn't it, is you see kids and they're just like playing a game with like a carrier bag in a box. They don't need special things,
No,
because everything's special.
it's so true. Actually, I've been joining my partner. He's really gotten into photography, and so I just kind of just join him, because I actually really find it quite nice to kind of spot things that look quite nice, and people that look quite interesting. It's weird because I'm not actually taking any of the pictures, but I'm just kind of looking, and it's really fun just doing that.
You like the stylist.
Yes, exactly. I was like, oh, they look nice. Why not them? And it's really fun, weirdly. Even I'm just sort of a passerby, not really doing much. But yeah, actually,
It's a really good exercise, I think, in focusing on sort of extraordinary and wonder, is to look at what would make a good photograph. And it's such a beautiful art form, I think, photography.
yeah,
And the process of photography and the history of photography is also wonderful and extraordinary as well.
yeah.
Another thing I do is every time I do something, like I don't know, say I'm watching the TV or put on my laptop, I've started to, for probably the last 10 years, really think, do I know how that works? Do I know who invented that? And often, to my embarrassment, the answer is no, not really. I just switch a kettle on. I don't know, do I? And so it's really interesting and genuinely interesting to investigate that stuff and realise that behind us all is this long line of amazing ancestors that we owe so much to, who worked out a really efficient way of getting electricity into cables into our homes. And the ordinary everyday things are wonderful.
You're so right, though. It's weird. We don't stop and notice those things, isn't it? We kind of take it for granted a lot. Um,
Yeah.
and I was wondering, do you think, during COVID, because obviously everyone was like stuck at home, and things like that. Do you think that people have actually been able to experience more or less wonder? Are they noticing more, do you think?
That's a lovely question. I certainly think I've had lots of conversations and seen lots of things online where people have expressed the fact that they are no longer taking things for granted, and that feels related to appreciation and wonder. I think people had the chance to slow down, whether they chose that or not. They had the chance to slow down for perhaps the first time in years or ever, and that by itself invites the opportunity for wonder, I think, because if you've slowed down, you've got the chance to watch a bee lolloping lazily from foxglove to foxglove, or you've got the chance to notice your dog gambolling across the park. And I think a lot more people as well had time for the first time to be outside, because outside became a space of recreation, a space of exercise and assembly that was safe. And so a lot of people who hadn't for a long time or ever experienced the wonder of nature had that experience. So I think yes. And also we experienced the wonder of our health service, of our amazing scientists and medics, of what we're capable of doing as human beings. So I really love that question, but I would say yes. I think many people did experience wonder more, and probably many people like myself are like, I really hope I can hold on to some of that. I really want to hold on to some of that.
Me too. I hope so too. And I kind of hoped, like, as you said, yeah, lots of people were outside. And I was like, maybe children for the first time in this generation are experiencing what we were like as kids, which was spending time in the park and just, having fun. And I was like, maybe finally they got a bit of that back during this time. I kind of hope. Yeah. And actually, I was wondering, it was really, you're totally right about the environment, the issue of and the link between environment and wonder. And I was just wondering, why do you think we need to experience awe in order to kind of protect our environment?
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because I think there's an element of fear in awe. So, yeah, I think wonder plus fear equals awe, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. I think of, like, say if you're on a hilltop and it's dark and you're in a thunderstorm, you might experience awe because there's an element, isn't there, of like, that's beautiful and it's also scary. So I don't think awe is a bad thing. I don't think that little frisson of fear, because what that is an acknowledgement of the might and the power and the importance of nature, of the ecosystem of which we are part. I've forgotten your question. I'm so sorry.
No, yeah, I was actually wondering, like, do you think the only way we will be more engaged with our environment and actually protect our environment if we are basically experiencing awe
Yeah.
from it?
I think we need to. I think it helps if we love it, and I think it helps if we understand it, and for that we need to be in it. So for me, because I live in a city like yourself, I'm interested in my fellow city dwellers, because I know it's easier. I come from the countryside and have lots of friends from the countryside. It is easier to be in it there. So I think we need to protect our green spaces in cities, extend our green spaces in cities, and be in them as much as we can, And then I think they become precious. Then we're more likely to fight for them. Then we're more likely to become curious as well and think to ourselves, I wonder what that tree is. Why does that tree look ill? What's going on there, And I think that's a gift that COVID's given us as well. A lot of people have sort of rediscovered or discovered the natural world for the first time, because they've never, through no fault of their own, they've never had the opportunity to. So I think we just need to be in it, and we need to fall back in love with it. What we need is to allow ourselves to be enchanted, because the world is enchanting, and then we'll love it. And you fight for what you love, right?
Definitely. It is. Yeah, it's been wonderful to see all the kind of wildlife documentaries that have come out during COVID, actually. And I do wonder whether that was, linked in some shape or form. Yeah.
I think so. I think you're right.
Hmm. And actually, Bernadette, I wanted to ask because obviously you just mentioned before about trying to figure out how your kettle works and your TV works because, yeah, oh God, I'm the same. I'm hopeless with all this stuff. So, are there actually any modern inventions that you've discovered in your wonder treasure chest?
Inventions. No, I mean most of my investigation, I'm poor at, and I'm trying to focus a little bit. But my brother-in-law's an engineer, so he's been quite an inspiration for me in terms of thinking I really need to investigate human-made things a little bit more. Most of my investigations have been about mushrooms and trees and animals. So no, apart from a little bit of investigation into roads, which, because I was thinking, like, roads are really basic, right? They're everywhere. And when I was, Sophie Austin and I were writers in residence at Lesnes Abbey Wood, which is an ancient wood in Bexley Heath, and we started investigating roads because there's a main road runs through the wood. And I was thinking, yeah, roads are kind of really basic. I don't really know much about them. And that was kind of amazing because there's a link that can be made between the tracks that insects make and then, for example, that ants make, the little desire paths that ants make as they're finding their homes. They are then pursued by larger animals that eat, and birds that eat ants that are then pursued by other predators. So in a way you can trace back the making of roads. You could back from ants to birds to mammals to horses to droving carts to shepherds to rough tracks to tarmac to dual carriageways. So I've got quite interested in roads and thought about how many of the roads we've got in a way just started off as a little ant trail, So I'm quite interested in that. Yeah.
It's amazing.
I still need to find out. It's really good though. It's a really good challenge. I need to investigate human-made things a little bit.
It's tricky though.
Is there anything you'd like to find out about?
God, so much, so much. I'm a huge fan of space. So I'm always really intrigued by, the things that they use, some of the equipment and machinery they use to be able to map out space, to see all those things like the Hubble space, a space telescope, which I just thought was just such an incredible human feat. But yeah, I'd love to do more exploration into this.
Well, my friend is a cosmologist and an educator. You should interview him. He would love you.
Oh.
He's on Twitter and his name is Dr. Dominic Galliano.
Ah.
What an amazing name.
Yeah.
So, yeah, he would be your man. He's really great at sort of explaining his really interesting journey as a scientist and at just answering questions. So I'd really recommend speaking to him.
It's just amazing. That's such a great job.
I know, right? What a job. It's amazing.
And actually, the part I really liked was the idea of magic. I think obviously people have like a really sort of rigid notion of what magic is, isn't it? And so I was just wondering, for you, what's your like favorite magic trick, you could say, or treat, or?
I love that. I love how it's really provocative, that word, and I use it quite a lot. And when I started using thaumaturge as a sign off, it was deliberate. I was like, I love using words that I know people will have to look up because then I think, then they'll know another word. It was quite playful. But when I originally proposed this book, I wanted to call it Magic. And my publishers very sensibly were like, maybe it should be Wonder because it's less, maybe it would be thought of as less whimsical. But I don't shy away from the word magic, and I do believe in magic, and that doesn't mean that I don't also believe in science, and it doesn't mean I think that my will can change the physical fabric of the universe. I don't. But if I can, magic can have many definitions, but if one of the definitions of magic is the transformation from one thing into another thing, then kindness is magic, right? And love is magic, and wonder is magic, and surprise is magic, and anything that changes somebody's mood, anything that transforms someone from sadness into happiness, or is magic. So probably kindness is my favourite kind of magic. But also I quite like I do a lot of quite mischievous guerrilla art projects that are nothing to do with the things that I do sort of as a professional artist. So for around 25 years now, I have left tiny little letters in tiny little envelopes, literally all over the world. And I don't think I've ever told anyone that before.
That's amazing.
So I write little messages in, and they're quite often quite strange, like, now you've opened this, what are you going to do for the rest of your life? So they're quite deliberately sort of provocative, just because I think if I found a tiny envelope in a public toilet or in a phone box and it said that, I would be like, I would love that. So I always handwrite them. I've done it for years. So I think I like, and I call that kind of thing street magic, which I talk a little bit about in the book. With a small group of friends of mine, we often literally go out into the streets and leave strange drawings and letters and diagrams and funny little clues in the streets. So I think you can introduce wonder into your everyday life, or their lives, into your community, just by being a little bit mischievous. So for me, that counts as magic. Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. That's so cool. Yeah.
Sometimes I send people a little dice kit. So I send them a dice, and I send them options of the 6 things that they can do with the dice, and it's really nice. There's a book I think called Dice Man, which is a bit sinister. But mine are all lovely options. But I think there's something about deliberately disrupting your life, which can be magic because it can be transformative. There's something about expressions of kindness and acts of kindness that are magic. But there's also I'm sure you know this, but I write poems and I sort of paste them onto lampposts or leave strange sayings. So I do a lot of sort of guerrilla, unofficial. I probably shouldn't even say that. It's probably not even legal. But anyway, that's what.
Although I think that's not harming anyone, isn't it? They're just getting
Also, I sometimes think what happened to me was that I escaped quite a challenging time when I was a child, to say the least, by escaping into films and into books. And then for some reason I decided that I was just going to do that thing that people do, like they do in books and films. And you can. So if you see a film and in the film the person decides to leave their job in the middle of the week, if they're lucky enough to have some savings, and go and walk up to John O'Groats, then you can do that. There are loads of privileges attached to that. Understand, of course. But I think it's worth unpacking. If you say to yourself, I can't do that, or I mustn't do that, it's worth examining that. Can you not? Is it that you can't because you are not giving yourself permission? And if all you need is to give yourself permission, then do it. Because the world really is full of wonders, and you are a magician. You are already capable of transforming your life and the lives of other people and every single person and thing around you at every single moment and every day. You have magic right there and in your heart.
You actually remind me of Amelie. Did you ever watch? Yeah. This
Perfect example, isn't it?
It's like spreading joy, which I love.
It's interesting. It's a really good example, that film, because it's lovely, that film. There's nothing in that film that's impossible, really, is there?
No.
She's not doing anything that requires sort of her levitation or sleight of hand, or it's just more of a sort of creative playfulness, I suppose.
Mm, definitely. And it's weird actually. When I was reading, obviously, your new book, which is How to Be Hopeful, I was seeing that there was actually quite a lot of crossovers. And would you say like wonder also creates hope?
Yeah, I think so. I think giving yourself permission to play, to tell stories, to be imaginative, to find out, to absorb yourself in inquiry or joy can make you feel hopeful. It can at least give you the hope that you can find a meaningful life or a fun life or have adventures. Yeah. And I agree with you. I think the three books, Kindness and Hope and Wonder, are connected, are really connected, I suppose. Writing each of those three books gave me a chance to dig into that particular subject deeper, but they're very, very much connected. And I guess they're also connected in terms of I kind of like to write things that are practical or to give people the beginnings of ideas. Obviously, you might have your own better ideas, but just to say this is what I've done and this is what you could do. So there are things to try. So I guess all three of my books have that in common as well, that there is sort of invitation to actually try things.
So I've got to ask. So is there another one in the collection going to happen?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, as you mentioned to me, I am at the moment really enjoying sort of being back in theatre and doing live performance. So I'm writing a show at the moment with folk dance remixed, which is also about hope. But so I've sort of, yeah, I've kind of really plunged back into live performance. But I probably love writing books the best of all the things and the kind of research around that and the practical exercises around that as well. So yes, but I don't know. I haven't quite settled on what it is yet.
Yay!
First.
Yeah, please do. I can't wait. I'm testing all of these out. I sent out a mini three-line horror story to this week to people because I was like, yeah, no, because it reminded me of like when I was in university, I lived in China for a while, and one of my best mates, she's South Korean, and over there they have a really big culture of horror and like ghost stories, right? Amazing. So she would do these we would do this all night. Like she would just give me these three-line horror stories and it would freak me out and it was great. And I was like, this is so cool. So I remembered some of them and I was like, oh, I just want to share that. That just came to my head after I was like, oh man, yeah, it's so good. I just really enjoyed that.
I love it that you mentioned horror as well because I'm actually a really big fan of horror. I think, and sometimes that surprises people because of the other work I do. But always, it was funny. My nana, who was just the sweetest grandma that you could possibly think you can have, was a massive fan of horror, and it's so unlikely. I know she was really sweet, but she really loved horror, sort of short stories, horror, and I think it's just that sort of vicarious thrill of. It's a safe way of being scared, isn't it? It's a safe way of exploring. They're often really moralistic as well, and I like this sort of the myths and the vampires and the ancient castles and all that. I suppose it was an aesthetic thing as well. But like you as well, this time of year, the idea of telling ghost stories, even three sentence ghost stories around a fire in the woods, it's delicious.
Yeah.
And that's part of us as well. That shadow side, if you like, or the dark side, or the need to understand darkness is really important. We don't have to be we can be everything we are, which is including lovers of horror.
Definitely. It gives you a weird thrill, like just a bit like going on a roller coaster, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm really interested in women writing horror, and I wanted to recommend someone to you and I've forgotten. When I remember it later, I'll tell you. I've just read an amazing book by a female horror writer. I think women writers have a really sort of different perspective on it as well as, yeah, really lovely. So when I
Definitely.
remember, I can't remember right now, I'll find her and send it to you. Yeah.
Yay! I look forward to it. I will definitely read it. And Bernadette, thank you so much again for taking your time in your very, very busy schedule to talk to me about random stuff like horror stories. And so I really, really appreciate it. It's been so nice to talk to you.
And you, my darling. I look forward to hopefully one day we'll be able to go for a walk in the park together and
Yes.
not pick mushrooms.
No, no, not the wrong ones. God.
No, that would be our horror story.
That will be our horror story. God.
Not
It's so nice.